Blessings, everyone. Greetings. This is the Womb Room number 2 with Mary Costello, and I am so grateful to have the beautiful LHAMO LOTSCHER with me today. Hey, LHAMO. Let me just introduce LHAMO, and then we're just going to speak as we do. So, the purpose of the Womb Room is to offer just a place of receptivity, a warm soil, and with each woman or man that comes into this soil, it just gets richer and deeper and more nourishing. Um, so we're just gathering up the pearls within, or allowing, I wouldn't say gathering, but allowing the pearls within to unfold into the soil so that we can see what they look like and we can feel them again and hear what wisdom and feel what wisdom does to us, how it moves us. So Lamo has a lot of amazing qualities and a lot of things that she has dedicated herself to, which is amazing. She is an interfaith minister, a conduit of the sacred feminine, mystic, somatic psychotherapist, a reseeder of sacred mother wisdom codes, and the mother of redheads, and also very beautifully married to her beloved soulmate, and a spiritual counselor and mentor. And Lamo speaks to me about finding the language to bridge both worlds. Um, so I just want to welcome you here, Lamo, and allow you the space to speak as you wish and be as you wish so we can all enjoy you.
So wonderful to be here. Earlier, you just before you were saying about this room being like soil, and I was talking to a friend the other day saying how well, it was velvet, so she was on here before. So and I was talking to V and saying how Australia is a wild land. She's vast and open, and we have a relatively small population, and yet we have lineages from all around the world have found their way here. And I was talking about how there seems to be so many women who are just like they are around the world, but are choosing to awaken their spirituality and choosing to step in and call themselves priestesses or spiritual workers. And I think that's because Australia affords, gives them a land where we don't have the enculturated oppression that other places do. It's just a theory. For me, I feel so blessed to be connecting with you and a community of Irish and British women, because that's where my ancestry comes from. And I feel like I hold a survivor and a thriving story that's not woven into the fabric of tragedy, trauma, and loss that weaves itself around the great exodus from Ireland. There's the story of forced immigration, of starvation, of a generation leaving for America and Australia, and well, a lot of Scots ended up in New Zealand, but moving away from Ireland. But I don't think, and I'm only recently, like in the last 2 years, 18 months, really this landed, is recognizing how much it was almost like the ancient wisdom, the priestess wisdom, the spiritual wisdom was still sent out through these mother lines, and it was able to unfurl itself in different continents, so to be taken back, to be handed back, to be gifted. And I don't know, that's not an arrogance saying that perhaps here in Australia we might know something that's different anywhere else. It just meant that what I'm speaking is that there's a flourishing and a freedom, and we're now hopefully in their beautiful technology, offering a time where we can walk a bridge, as Velvet says, walk a rainbow bridge back to
That,
each other.
yeah, so
I'm
much
really
just comes, yeah, so much comes to my vision when you say that. It's really interesting. So, I hear you say it's almost like the land in Australia was free of so many imprints that would kind of maybe twist or contort um the essence. And it sounds like there was a level of preservation done. The people who moved to Australia, as you say, they brought something that was able to be preserved because of that lack of kind of, what's the word,
good.
interference or
I don't
intrinsic
even know
interference.
whether I don't even know
Mm,
whether it was conscious, and I
yeah.
can't say anyone anything other than myself. Um,
Mm,
but I do know that we missed out on the last 100 years of history
yeah. Mm,
and everything that the incredible women have endured and survived through
mm-hmm.
um, in Ireland and England, and Ireland
Yeah.
particularly. And
Mm,
I don't know. I feel a calling
yeah.
to weave what my um I can't even say that they did it consciously,
No, but
but
it's, yeah.
I was able to um pick up those threads and reweave them. And yeah.
It's, yeah. It feels like almost when you're describing it that somehow the people who had to move to Australia, they called it no man's land, right? It was thought you were sent to nothingness, no man's
Mm,
land, where there's nothing. So maybe this was the place of, where people had to know what it was to build from nothing but themselves. And where I have lived in Ireland, and just this is speaking just purely energetically based off my own perceptions. I am I'm built from, there's a lot threaded in because nothing was to be forgotten. Nothing is ever
mm,
to be forsaken. So there's a lot of things threaded in that then have to be kind of released the right way or honored the right way. But it feels like, so in that there's within the core structure, there's actually more than the self. So when
mm.
I hear you speaking, I'm just feeling like I just see these, like, this ability to just go to have people have gone to this place of nothingness. That's what it was called, no man's land. And that's not to say that's what it is, but and to actually build from what they were made of only. That's what it feels like. Yeah, yeah.
It puts a different slant on it, of course. We've got
Mm,
such massively rich Indigenous
mm,
culture that
mm-hmm.
wasn't recognised, revered, or supported in the way that it really needed to.
Yeah.
And we've got our own oppressive history because of that. But it's
Mm-hmm.
like I'm just talking about the soil of this
Yeah.
land,
Mm-hmm.
and what it was able to do um, for my mother line, and for I can't say all the women, but there's a resurgence here for those women who are ready and wanting to reclaim their spirituality. Maybe it's happening everywhere. Um,
Yeah.
there's a freedom for expressing that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember as a young person heading off and traveling, and I landed in northern Lancashire and
Mm,
went and visited Howarth because Emily Bronte lived there. And there was like there was everywhere in the 1990s, there was a new age bookshop there. And there was a man who, every time an Australian turned up, they would, the guy up the top of the shop would take it down to the guy who owned the shop. And because he knew that they were like, he called them the goddesses in Australia, were coming home to reconnect with something. Um, that they were searching for without even realizing that's why they were traveling. Um, and he took me to some phenomenal sacred sites
mm,
that wouldn't have been able to be found. So I don't know where I'm
Yeah.
going with that one, but I feel very
Well,
grateful.
yeah. When you speak of the Rainbow Bridge, and I know Velvet speaks of this too, but this feels like somehow, and I know I'm going it quite abstract, and this is completely impersonal to anybody, but it feels like this, presence of the rainbow serpent, which I know to be in Australia, is almost gathering, to the preservation, and I'm actually getting chills, gathering preservation of these lineages that you speak of. And now, when you speak of these lines reaching back out and opening back out and like touching back to all the places they came from, it feels like it was at this time when the world was in such incredible turmoil. And I really am feeling the beautiful presence of, as you would say, the Aboriginal people in Australia, the richness and the depth within them. I'm feeling this call to this one place. I'm feeling, in particular, I've seen this tree, the let's say the pinnacle or the central tree of life at Uluru, and I've seen the rainbow serpent, um, who, you know, works with this tree. And
Mm.
that's what I feel now as you speak, this almost like this inhalation, this gathering of all these precious lineages into this color. And now there's an exhale. There's like a release where all these lineages are allowed to go back and touch, their places and their people, to bring everyone back. That's what it feels like. Mm.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I feel, and I know that oh, many, particularly of my generation,
Mm.
felt this massive calling to go and travel to the lands of where
Mm.
their people have come from, because there was just this pull, the generational pull.
Yeah.
Now here, 25 years later, there's
Mm.
it feels like we need each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a gifting of two things, like
Mm.
of gifting of rerouting for those that have
Mm.
been uprooted, and a rethreading for those who have carried the seeds, the wisdom, the knowledge, and been it's been able to thrive, like
Yeah.
thrive in a different soil, so that
Yeah.
now the seeds can be taken back and be planted and
Mm.
spread again. So it's this beautiful, um, whatever is truly ours is never lost,
Yeah.
and we all need each other, and
Mm.
we're the medicine for each other,
Yeah.
all of us. So
That is so
you-
gorgeous.
what you definitely have been for me. So
This is beautiful. And I don't know any Aboriginal people. I'm just feeling this energy right now. So I don't want to step on in the wrong way, but I will speak what I feel. And I see this power of the didgeridoo. I actually see this almost like, um it's like rings of just like pushing through these lines, wherever these lines went in the world, almost like sending out the call, but also opening the lines, because that's what that didgeridoo does. It opens space.
mm,
Um, and that I just see that now, and I'm grateful to see that. That's all. Mm. So we have spoken. You have. I would love to, if it suits you, to speak on this.
mm,
Um, you spoke so beautifully this week, about the restrictions placed upon the woman's voice, or the woman's ability to self-define. And I just
mm,
wanted to speak on that a bit, if that suits you, because I know that post got so much attention,
mm,
because you're giving back, you're giving women the right to actually feel something that they feel, by saying, this is how I feel. You're reminding
yeah,
women, oh yeah, I feel this way too. I didn't agree to this, or so. If we could talk about that, what came up as well, I spoke about the performative voice of the feminine, and how that is. let's say, has run its course. It is doing nothing but sustaining things that should not be sustained. It is giving when the feminine, when the woman is in a performative voice, an appeasing voice, a manipulative, frightened voice. There's no judgment. This comes from fear. Generally, she is upholding something that should collapse, and probably making herself sick in the process. So I wanted to speak on that. The you know Yeah, just the voice of you in that moment that compelled you to speak.
Um, I think we would only have ended up here. We have only ended up here because women have been responding to an external definition of femininity, um and actually so that's not really what I want to say. I think for me, when I hear about the performative feminine, I feel my words for that is topside or superficial.
Okay.
And we've arrived here because of phenomenal disconnection
Mhm.
and disconnection from our bodies, outsourcing of sovereignty, um,
Mm.
giving away to experts with our childbearing, our
Yeah.
defining our sexuality through men and men's experience, and rather than doing our internal work. And I know there are women everywhere who have really, since 2012 has been a phenomenal shift on the planet, of women speaking of this. But there are those of us who have been doing it since day dot. Like,
Yeah.
I was in women's circles reclaiming our menstrual and womb wisdom back in the late 80s and early 90s. So
Mm.
I, I've sought out those women. I've found those women because I needed to understand my connection to myself.
Yeah.
I um, I started listening to my womb and her wisdom consciously when I was 19. I read Vicky Noble's book, A Shakti Woman, and realized that our womb lining is like the a snake skin, and that every month we shed that. And I went, oh, that's just revolutionary. So I devoured that book and started using my womb as a teacher. Um, but we're here today because there are those of us who have been madly, busily reclaiming this for ourselves. Like, I'm sitting on the threshold of menopause, and just like each epoch of this um, incredible earth experience of being a woman, I'm bringing my whole consciousness to it. So I've absolutely seeing it as the perimenopause as an initiation. I heard the calls of my perimenopausal change 5 years ago, and each
Mm.
year has been a deeper and deeper and deeper listening. So I've done that my whole life since I was a teenager now. And I know
Mm.
there are many, many women doing that. And then, so it's our meaning making path. Like, it's how we know ourselves. And it's such a no brainer. Like, it's so obvious. And obvious to us that this is our spiritual unpacking, that we've got this, and obvious to the men that love women. And then at the same time, oddly and strangely, it's been happening for maybe the last 10 years through academia, but really now in legislature and here, like the self-identity bills that are moving through government are basically, it's like this tide is rising. And what happened last week is that I've been watching the tide rise, but it hadn't actually stepped onto my world because it seems so nonsensical that
Mhm.
a woman who is not born female has the same understanding of womanhood as a woman who is born female.
Yeah.
It's like you can't have the same experience. And
Mhm.
just because you think that you have the same experience, how can you think that when you haven't had the same experiences? And
Mm.
there's a and that tide kind of hit my field, and it was my fierce mother came up, and it will be stopped, like here in where
Mm.
I have the chance to speak out. It's my love for my children and my children's children's children.
Yeah.
My commitment is the next 7 generations, Mary, and I'm not going to allow them to go. No one stood up and stopped this.
Mm-hmm.
My voice rose up in true love and compassion. It's like we need to speak out. And
Yeah.
we've been doing this work. We need
Mm-hmm.
to now really stand, and we stand together. We stand
Yeah.
together. Yeah.
That is
That's
beautiful. And does it feel, is at this moment, is there an attempt to legislate
here in
something to
Australia.
silence women's voices? Is that kind of what, or to define a
It's
woman in a different term?
Well, it's giving permission for anybody to self-identify as the gender that they are, which isn't
Okay.
that first layer?
Hmm.
It's
Yes.
because I identify myself as a
Mm.
tree by now that can
Hmm.
be a tree, even
Yeah.
though I have lived my whole life as a
Mm.
tree. So how am I ever going to
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
know what it feels like to be a tree? So I'll give you
Hmm.
an example. For me, 2 years ago, I took 30 years of journeying with working with women, sitting in
Mm.
circles with women, running courses to work, and a body that I was gifted. And that's when I talk about the mother codes. In
Mm.
2012, I was given um, uh, the mission to
Mm.
birth 13 different mandalas of wisdom from the Divine Mother. I got called and given, and that they would turn up over 12 months, and I did. I had a year of visions, and I wrote all of that down, and I sat in non-stop women's circles until um, 2022, and then I took all of that work to the men of my
Mm.
community, a circle of midlife men, and when I
Mm.
was sitting with those guys, I said, I can't tell you what a man's experience is. Don't even ask me. I'm not
Mhm.
here to tell you what a man is, who a man is, how it is. I wouldn't have any clue. In honor and integrity and in deference to their
Mhm.
unique experience, I would never speak to that. How can I? I can
Mhm.
speak to another woman's, a biological woman's experience, because she might not have had children. She might not have consciously conceived her children. She might not have been able to birth her children naturally. She might not have been able to breastfeed her kids. And
Mhm.
still, there is so many things that we will, because of our biology, understand each other in. Like we
Yeah.
know. And the
Mm.
wonderful thing about women, biological women who sit with other biological women, we down-regulate together. We actually
Mm.
bring each other back into
Yeah.
alignment together. We we uplift each other.
Mm.
We change our biology together. We like cows in a paddock. Which is probably not the
Yeah.
best analogy, but that's what we do. That's what us
Yeah.
make each other feel safe. We're like,
Yeah.
oh, we can take our bras off. We can all hang out
Mm.
together. We've
Best
got a
feeling.
experience where I would never have them. And out of my
Mhm.
honor and integrity, I would never choose to speak that. What I can and what I did give is um, give them the distilled wisdom of
Mm.
the feminine through my embodied feminine experience of working with hundreds of women, give them
Mm.
those tools and those insight as men.
Yeah.
And now here we are living with this, as you speak at this performative aspect of the feminine, which is
Mm.
so a diminishment of
Mhm.
actually the truth of our power.
Yeah.
Our wombs hold so
Mm.
much. If people think that our biology, like our womb, our capacity to give birth and our capacity to bleed every month is just a scientific bodily function that
Mhm.
some women have and some women don't, and
Yeah.
minimize it down to that, they've
Mm.
lost the point. And
Yeah.
it sits contrary, and this is where it came from, to my
Mm.
spirituality, to my spiritual.
Yes. Mhm.
Because what is spirituality other than meaning making? And
Mm.
any woman who has walked an embodied path knows she's drawn her meaning from her embodiment. So,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
This is beautiful, Emma. It's so rich, and I've a few things to speak in response to you. And just to underpin our conversation, there's absolutely zero question about, we are representatives of the Eternal Mother, and we love everyone in creation. And this is, I speak for you. I know this is you too. We have a deep desire to see everyone taken care of, but we also have a duty because we are within the channel of the Eternal Mother. We actually have a duty, as you say, of honor and integrity. We're not actually allowed to abandon that post because creation actually finds its order around that integrity and that honor. So we
Mm,
actually don't have the luxury of abandoning our embodiment and pretending anything.
mm,
So I just want to speak to what you said. It's like that legislation. I think this is where it becomes like an affront or such a dishonor when it's being said that anybody can say they're a woman, just at the stroke of a pen or whatever. This is what a woman is. What it feels like these projections are being placed upon woman, like what a woman is, whereas we know what a woman is, obviously. So surely, if someone would like to learn how to be a woman or learn how to be of woman, you may not become a woman, but you can learn to be of woman. You can certainly learn to be of the mother. Let to come to the right people. We have been building ourselves this way, and we have been with whatever degree of sacrifice or whatever degree of decision and consequence, we have been building ourselves as women from the beginning. And we are standing in an eternal lineage. There's a lineage that we answer to. We don't get to change the reality based on the time we're in. We have to represent what we represent. Um, So when you speak of the biological understanding between women and those 13 mandalas that came through you, and I just feel this like beautiful feeling of resonance. And I know that feeling you're talking about. It's like the women come together and everyone just breathes out. It's like, ah, this and we offer that to everyone. Offer that holding to anyone
mm,
in our lives. But then when we get to come together and we get to put down the children, put down the husband, put down whatever, we come together and this beautiful holding pattern is created between us. Now,
mm.
I would say we want that all the time for everyone, nonstop. But we don't, for us to revive ourselves, I would love you to speak on that because you have, like you say, you have been in circles for so long. In order for us
Mm.
to revive ourselves or come back in, like I say, we are holding a sound pillar, an eternal word of integrity and honor. And for us to come back into the circle of women, it almost strengthens us enough to go back out and expand our sound again. And now when
Absolutely.
these projections are being pushed on top of the woman, and we're being asked to take on someone else's voice, to speak someone else's words. Um, yeah, I just want you to speak on because you do so much, you have done the circles, you have done this, you understand this gathering, this restoration of women.
I think
Mm,
uh, once a woman, like
mm,
once someone, actually, it's a someone, once anybody who
mm,
has, so I witnessed it with men. I
mm,
witnessed when we come together with our, like, it's ridiculous that here we are, like, this is what we're in. Here we
mm,
are in 2024, and we have to be careful about how we speak. It's basically when men come together with other men and sit in a safe place
mm,
with each other, and are able to witness each other's hearts open, it that just being with other guys together changes them. It gives them
mm,
back something that they don't have when they sit in as the only
Yeah.
man with a group of women, and in mixed groups, and it's the same with women.
Mm.
So, and because my biggest experience is sitting with circles of women, I've seen how women grow. Like
Mm.
the my container of Mother Quest is 13 months long, so 11 years of 13 months long. And before that, years and years of sitting in different, I've run all my courses in person, in circles, in tents, in halls, outside, inside, everywhere, now online, but sitting with circles of women. Not everybody has the language in their nature to speak
Mm.
of a resonant experience. Like and when women listen to each other, they hear another woman's story and goes, oh my
Mm.
gosh, I thought I was alone in that.
Yeah.
I hear you. I see you in me. I hear you within me. I know that this is true. Oh, I see you. We are one together. That process is a process of deep recalibration back to oneness. And my term for that is sacred witnessing. When we are able to truly witness each other and see each other in our uniqueness, so each other seeing the uniqueness and the difference, but also holding the sameness and the oneness. It's like that
Yeah.
unit, that one
Mm.
piece of, I'm hearing your story. I know it's your story, but I also have that story within me. I
Mm.
see you, I understand it. And
Yeah.
I don't see you as separate, but I see you as whole. That's what
Mm.
miracles happen. Like
That
it's
is beautiful. Mm.
miracle and healing happens. And
Yeah.
beautiful thing to experience. And I'm so grateful for uh, the years that I've spent sitting on the floor. Um,
Yeah.
and it's funny, last year I felt that, okay, this is time. So
Mm.
my time to sit in circle in person is
Mm.
has shifted. I can't say that it won't happen again, but for
Yeah.
now, my
Yeah.
desire is to and to connect with people differently. But oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, I wouldn't have embodied what I've embodied without
Yeah.
sitting with women
Mm-hmm.
and
And
awakened to what I've
yeah,
awakened.
what you speak, when I see that image, I see in this circle, the image of the circle, the image of the sacred witness, is that there is a tone to the circle. There is an agreed upon intention, let's say, or at least a base tone of belonging, truth, embodiment almost. And I see this containment, and I see sitting on the ground as one of the most important things about it, because it's like we're coming back down to ground. We're coming to reality. So whatever your story is, let that be your story, but let's bring it down to the ground and see how we can bring it into a way, into something that's true. And maybe it will be that your story isn't maybe we have to give up parts of our story to ground, to be in truth. Maybe, yeah. So which do we
Absolutely.
choose? Do we choose to be held up high, disembodied in the story, or do we choose to be held in a place where we can actually feel vibrational resonance in the body, on the ground? I love it. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. And you're
Yeah.
speaking, I think, the art and the
Mm.
mastery of circle work is when we drop
Yeah.
this. We I don't
Yeah.
need to share any part of my story. I'm actually sharing to give voice. That's why I've said to so
Mm.
many women, you don't need to share because I need to understand you.
Yeah.
You're sharing to express what you've held in silence and in your own inner world.
Yes.
You're giving
Mhm.
voice to this. You're
Mm.
allowing it out of you. And in the witnessing, it's no longer a private thought. It's now been
Mhm.
held true. Your pain has been
Mm.
held true. Your power has been held true. Your joy and your
Mm.
sorrow. All of this has been witnessed, but you are sharing it for yourself. And
Mm.
the great opportunity as human beings is to
Mm.
be able to process our emotions and give,
Yes.
like, release them out. So the wisdom of their truth can be
Mm.
held, but the energy
Yes.
of them can be expressed. And hey, we sit in
Mm.
circle. on the ground as equals. There's a really
Yeah.
important thing
Mm.
whenever we gather together on the ground, because
Mm.
there is no person, even if I'm holding the circle, I'm sitting as a woman, sitting as a
Yeah.
human on the
Mm.
ground with everybody else. No
Mm.
hierarchy, no
Yeah.
superiority, no disconnection, but
Yeah.
oneness. Yeah.
It's beautiful. And like you say, the gift of being able to tell our story, um, we realize because this is what happens as we go through different traumas and different fractures, and we this is what I feel what happens when something traumatic happens. It's so foreign to the body, the peace body and the body of love, that we almost have to hold ourselves outside of the body in that moment and create a story around the trauma. And we think it's our trauma, and that's fine. But what happens then when we get together and speak our story, we realize it's like everyone has the trauma, unfortunately. Everyone has the little knots that have kept them outside of their body, that have kept them feeling frightened, too frightened to be in their body. Um,
Mm.
so by all means, like the road to that is talking. It's so important to, yeah, absolutely just spill it all out, you know, for sure.
Giving breath and
Yeah.
voice to it. Well, in somatic psychotherapy and Buddhist
Mm,
psychotherapy, the language of that is that when we have trauma, we disconnect our breath, and we
okay.
the language in the
Wow.
that come from, it's we excarnate. We actually do not disassociate, but we disconnect from that part of us. Buddhists call
Mm,
it sankharas. Modern day science call it our uh, the emotions that we store in our neuropeptides. So
mm,
um, we disconnect, and why we disconnect is that the experience was we weren't given presence. It's a child
mm,
can recover from anything if it has a loving presence to allow the trauma to be discharged from the body. Our bodies have a
mm,
natural
okay.
inbuilt discharge process. It's crying,
Mm,
shaking, laughing hysterically, sweating. We've got that,
mm,
but it's love and people's presence
mm,
that going, you're okay. Like, you can let these
mm,
feelings go. You can actually process them. But we've lost that language, and so most adults,
mm.
bless for their unwilling ignorance, unwitting ignorance, I think that the crying is the hurt, but it's not.
Okay.
The crying is the discharge. So that's how those beliefs slip in. It's
Mm,
like, well, nobody was there for me. What I believe, what my body mind structure tries to make sense of,
mm,
puts sense around that trauma, and it then becomes our reality, until we sit in circle as adults and our souls are waking up and our souls want to go home from experienced all of this, like our own unique form of separation from love. And it's like, oh, how quickly can I get back to love? Experience that separation. Now let me grow the wisdom of coming back
mm.
to love. And that's when in circles we can speed that up, because we give each other that presence
Well,
with
that's
the
yeah,
with the understanding that we understand, as women sitting in
yeah,
circles, to get each other. We get each
yeah,
other.
yeah. That's beautiful. I love that the crying and the shaking is the release. It's not the hurt. That's really
No,
it's like it's trying to push whatever has been absorbed out of the body. That's wonderful. That's a wonderful thing to know. And I will integrate that and let that do its magic on me. You are doing something beautiful coming up very soon on the 31st of October. Um, do you want to tell us about that? What you're offering? It's like a workshop kind of a thing.
yes, I'm doing thank you. I'm doing a masterclass. It's actually really interesting. I um just before I speak about it, I'd just like to offer something.
Oh,
For the
please,
last
yes.
um 15 years, I've
Mm,
held a body of work, my ministry. So I'm an
mm,
interfaith minister. Interfaith is all faiths, pick a religion,
yeah.
any religion ordained in New York, called to it very reluctantly, um, uh, called to it. Um, and so I've been running my ministry in a body of work called the Ministry of She. And then like I said, I took all of this work to men, and I realized that I need to be working with both men and women. I've got a big
Mm,
story with handing stuff back to men. And I felt like there was a closure of Ministry of She being the vessel for my work. And then so I spent last year deeply resting. Um, it's all part of my wonderful menopausal initiation. Because I basically I'm deeply resting because I had nothing to give anything. I was done and needed to have a rest. And I I was writing my book Ancestry, which is the body of work from my great grandmother came to me in a dream the week before I gave birth to my daughter and poured a body of work over me and said, um, this is to heal our mother line forwards and backwards in time. So these are, and she poured, like she had it in her apron and she poured it over me, and all of these symbols and realizations, sort of not words but sort of dropped in, and I woke up so pregnant. I people say that they have I had a universe for my pregnancy, so I'm enormous anyway, rolled up sitting position and wrote stuff down, and then spent the next 18 months while I was breastfeeding unpacking that, and then it changed my life. So my baby's 18 in a month's time. So that I was writing that
mm,
work last year. And then it sort of came to an end in November, and another book hijacked itself. Like it just came through. And
mm.
that's that one, The Book of Shadows, but
Like a
which is
shadow.
54 negative emotions and all shadows and very fierce wisdom, feminine wisdom. I think it was for them. Actually, I know it was for the men, to start responsibility for their bad behavior. So that came through. And
Beautiful.
long story short, I have started a new platform called Spiritual Adulting, which is,
Mm,
and so I'm still finding my feet. I don't feel like I'm ready to put that out there. But I was sitting going only a couple of weeks ago thinking, I I'm a in human design, I'm a projector. So I'm here to be a conduit, a vessel to offer what I have and to give it as an offering. And something came through very strongly. It's time that I don't just do the ancestry work that I've been doing, but really get really serious and show people, offer to people what I know. And I was a
yeah.
reproductive and trauma counselor for 10 years. And
Mm,
that's what my big call. It's a masterclass to pull out the strands of epigenetic trauma, and give voice to the phenomena that is our epigenetic trauma, particularly the how we inherit the wounding that's happened to our mothers, our grandmothers, our great grandmothers, and how that not only it manifests as a reality in how we're raised, so their perception, their scar tissue because of their trauma is how they define the reality that we are born into. Their definition of this is what the world looks like. This is what
yeah.
love looks. This is what your worth looks like. So how that
Mm-hmm.
happens, also energetically,
Mm,
how in our phenomenology, that space between soul and our sense of self and how our ancestral epigenetic material manifests in our body, how we can actually clear and remove, release, and then repair the trauma that we carry. So that's what the masterclass is. I've got tools, so education that I've gathered over the last 20
yeah.
years. And my job is to give it away, like to
Mm,
hand it over, to gift it
mm,
back who are holding circles of women, um, who are holding their own women, doing their
yeah.
own deep ancestral work. And also, it's not so much for women healing themselves, but those who have done enough work on themselves are really ready to do that at another level.
Yeah,
What my
that
offering.
sounds so gorgeous. And do you say this came from your grandmother's apron as she visited
My
you
great
when you were pregnant, your great grandmother? Can
Yeah.
can you share her name? Is that okay?
Her name is Ethel Nellie Johnson, and she was an auburn-haired grandmother. So my
Mm,
mother's, I'm a brunette daughter, and all of my grandmothers back here from here in Australia were all redheads. Um,
yeah.
and Nellie, would she didn't marry my great grandfather until she was in her mid-30s, and then she
Mm,
had 4 girls. And then when she was in her early 40s, she contracted Murray River encephalitis. So she started to fall over. She got encephalitis that these days, if just with antibiotics, you can heal. But she ended up falling into a coma and was in a coma for months before she actually died. And but my mother never knew this because my grandmother was only 8 when she got sick and 10 when she actually died. And then my grandmother, my mum's mum, died when she was 43. So my mother was 19 at that age then,
mm,
or 18, I think. Um, so we've got this massive big gap of
mm,
hole in our mother line that Nellie
yeah.
came gave. She came in spirit. Like I've never
Mm.
had any experience like that. And it's like, what do you do when you have something like that happen? I don't know what I do. I'm not very good at doing what I'm told at all. I'm not very good at that. But she told me, she gave me these 7 psychospiritual areas to explore, and the consciousness was 7 different actual like solid generations as well as
Mm.
concepts, and it worked. It worked.
Wow.
Um, I've always had been very, very close to my mother, but also there was an area of mum that was so, how could it not be? Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Bereft because of the loss of her mother
Mm.
and the loss of that mothering. And
Yeah.
where she did a very good job, she's a very strong woman,
Mm.
holding everything, a good, kind woman. There's also
Mm.
parts of her that weren't. So it was
Yeah.
that we sat in difficulty
Mm-hmm.
with until we healed it. So
Yeah.
we
That
got to
is
the
so
other.
beautiful. I'm gonna do your masterclass. I'm really looking forward to it. I just have a story that comes to my mind as we're talking about that. Um, I did mention to you earlier off camera, but when I was a little girl and I would come home from school and the world I found very chaotic and insulting actually, because it wasn't I came with big dreams. I came with, memories of the way the world would be. It was all fine, but I would come home and I would run to my mother. My mother was always cooking. She always had an apron on, and I would put my arms around her hips and just cuddle into her womb. And I did this all the time. I just like scooted in, found my way in while she was cooking, like pressed myself between her and the cooker and just found my way in. And it just remember when you speak of your great grandmother's apron unfolding all of this. And I just, in that moment with my mother, I was coming back to her for strength. Right. I
Mm,
was like you said that word recalibrating. I was recalibrating against her. I was receiving her strength. And when I look at my mother and you're speaking of your mother and they were so incredibly strong and we are so incredibly strong. Um but then it is also I'm in this space now where I'm deepening into myself and finding out how can I be strong in a way that is eternally replenished, in a way that isn't of sacrifice and exhaustion. And
mm,
that offering from your great grandmother, it's like, and my mother stands behind me and helps me. It's like as if they are trying to, or they are helping us restore this eternal presence of the mother line, the fullness of the mother line, all the tools, It's one thing to be a skyscraper, a super strong building, but when there's internally, if there's weakness or if there's ways we have allowed things to be built within us, and what I see now is why there's such resistance to that we're all feeling of any false projection onto woman.
Mm.
Anything being told, you have to carry this now. This is part of you now. You are this, you are that. We are refusing that across the board, because we can't actually carry anything more. We need all of our strength for our children and the the evolutionary role we play for all children. And I
Mm.
see this eternal presence, this beautiful assistance coming from our grandmothers, our great grandmothers, who are bringing the fullness back to our bones, who are bringing the condensed strength and goodness and the enrichment and all of the richness and the depth and nourishment is coming back to the mother's body through this. And I feel that your masterclass is part of that. So I just feel that's incredible and amazing how much assistance we receive from grandmothers, the mothers, and the ones who have passed on. They don't leave, they never stop holding, and they just find a way to make it so we, as their daughters, can, and as their mothers, actually, can hold in a way that stops depleting us, that stops exhausting us, because we will hold one way or the other, we hold. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I see now why we are so resistant to being told to hold another layer of nonsense. Yeah, I
And
see it. Mm,
absolutely.
yeah.
Um, that I absolutely resonates with every part
Mm,
of me, Mary. It's
mm,
like, how can
mm,
we silence that? You know, that our ancestresses, our mothers, we carry in ourselves, but they're
mm,
spirit, they're part of our spiritual power. And when we find that, we connect ourselves to something that's unstoppable. So, um, may I just share a story? Quick.
please, yeah, I love stories.
So, because I think it exemplifies exactly what you've said. So,
Mm,
it's a long time ago. My baby was about 2 or 3, and my darling he was sick, and
mm,
it's my story to tell. But he was really unwell, and I was a mother of 2 little children and
mm,
facing a very unwell husband, and I was bereft.
mm,
I had run out of capacity.
mm,
Breastfeeding in itself is depleting, but with everything that was happening, I was empty. And so I reverted to what I'd known in my 20s, that when things get really hard, I go to a circle of women, and I went through women's rights. So this is a teaching that originated from a woman called Anna Davdovich, although I think it's our birthright because I had kind of discovered this stuff dancing to Sinead O'Connor in my lounge room when I was a teenager. So it held with other women, it opens a Shakti gateway. So I went, this is what I need. I need a circle of women doing powerful recalibration with their whole selves. I need to access that part of myself. Best way to get that is a group of women. And I went there, and the Shakti energy in the room in the center was starting to build. And I don't know, other people can get all of these blissful feelings. I know that it's building because I start feeling sick, and my head was pounding, and it was like, I was like, okay, it's building. So I sat down. We're supposed to be doing meditation anyway. I let my head against the wall, and I called in my ancestors. So I called in Nellie, and I called in my grandmother, and felt the soul of my mother. She's still alive, but I sort of called them in, and I opened myself up in prayer to my ancestresses. And then something truly magical happened in my sacred imagination. In walked 17 women wearing red, like woven cloth. It was very soft, like I think it might have been some form of wool, or I don't know. And their hair was all brocaded and plaits up on the top of their head and pinned with gold. And they walked in. There were 17 of them, and they placed like treasure chests at my feet. And I was like, this is really bizarre. And I looked up at them. They were formidable, and they placed these treasure chests at my feet. And what I knew in an instant of looking, that these were the lineage, the epoch of women who never left these teachings. So they came to me, and it wasn't until years later, so 15 years later, or no, 10 years later, I read what's his name? Beautiful menopause makes me forget things for the first time in my life. A book on ancestral healing. As an ancestral healing teacher, I've got it in my head. I know where the book is in my bookshelf, but he speaks that when we have done our inner healing work and it's complete, that our healed ones will come to us, and they always come in a group. I didn't know that back then. I only found that out like 10 years later, that that's what it is. They came to me with these treasure chests, and their presence fueled me. It wasn't the rite that I ended up going through. That ended up being horrendous, because I saw other parts of myself that I really needed to go and work on. I saw parts of my ego that needed to be absolutely obliterated to be able to open these boxes, but it was connecting to them. This, 17 generations of women who raised their daughters as in a lineage of priestesses, who never forgot the spiritual path of womanhood and connection to the feminine God, the Great Mother. And over the years, every time I sat in circle, because I always call my ancestresses as the first port of call, they would come. And over the years, these boxes have opened, and it has been the gift of my life to be able to draw that gold and precious and disseminated here in this lifetime. But that strength that you spoke of is what my ancient ancestresses have given to me. This golden lineage that maybe it took for this this 2 foot nothing, born during the potato famine, and woman from Limerick, to hop on a boat to come to the soil of Australia to birth her daughters. She had 3 girls, 17 years apart, so there were big gaps. So I think she lost many babies, and she
Yeah.
was a midwife herself, to birth these 3 daughters, to reseed, to carry what she from her homeland, to be able to somehow. I turned up, the kooky weird one, who knew that all I knew at the beginning is I needed to heal this mess with my family, because I knew this was, I loved them and I belonged, but I so didn't belong to the mess that was there. And do
Yeah.
this strange kooky work and then give it away, to
Mm.
realize that it's true. It is true.
Yeah.
It's not true with a little me truth. It's true.
Mm.
It stands solid, and that I can speak to say, I come from a lineage of priestesses. I do come from a golden lineage, and
Mm.
this gives a strength that is unquenchable, because through them, as every woman here, we go back to the original mother of our mother line, which is not just one woman. That is a lie. There are many mitochondrial strands of women. There's more than one. We don't go back to an ape. We come back to these seed bearers, these original women, who, where they come from, well, that's up to our meaning making to work that out. But they are the original blueprint of when God became human and became a mother. And that's what's in ourselves. And how can we deny that any longer?
I see this beautiful, you speak of the treasure chest and this pure, the word is remineralization of the mother's body. Um, I'm feeling all vibrational beginnings, all of the knowings, the eternal inherent knowings of the how to of creation is within the body. And I just would love if you can speak on that word that you said. You've said this before, and the first time I heard you say it, I was like, oh, yes, I want that. When you said we're remembering, or there are those of us who have never turned away from the feminine face of God. And when you just said there now that when God became body, is that what you, God became earth, um, or real, or I don't know the words. What that, can you explain to me what you mean by that or what that looks like?
Well, um, we'll just put this out there as a
Yeah.
concept. So something that
Yes.
I unpack in my ancestry work. So it
Mm,
is gifting it. Um, if we've been told a Genesis story, a creation
mm,
story. Growing up here in Australia, there is different um, First nation peoples
mm,
have different creation stories. One is about all humanity came out of the mouth of a frog. Um, uh, I during my women's way initiation with the Apache, they have the blessing where the white shell woman creation story, but we have a Genesis creation story that goes back to Adam and Eve in a garden. Many people that I work with, particularly here in Australia, have released the shackles of their Catholic upbringing, have opened to a vaster spirituality than just the dogma that they have been given of hold the beauty of the religion, perhaps, and the ritual, but not necessarily following the strict, this is what's written, so this is what I believe. But what we haven't done as people is to reevaluate what our true creation stories are. So we can, if we don't follow Genesis, then we follow creation story, Charles Darwin's theory, and it is just a theory. It's a very interesting book to read, where it says that we go back to his definition of the origin of our species. Now, if
mm,
we take both of them out and allow every person to find their own inner knowing of what their creation story is, you've got some really amazing ideas and concepts. Concepts like we come from off-world planets, that we are where humanity is an intergalactic experiment. And but
mm,
regardless of what you believe, if if it's true that we hold our mitochondrial DNA in our bodies as women, born women, men who, when a baby boy is born, he has his mother's mitochondrial DNA, but he doesn't pass that on. So
mhm.
he has her DNA, but he doesn't pass it on to his son. So
Okay.
it sort of steps down as steps. But with women, we actually carry that alive in ourselves,
Yeah.
right back to the original mother. Event somewhere in our lineage, right? Where, well, let's go back to the day dot. Our first mother, her blueprint is in our cells. And what was behind her, if not a meaning making and a concept of what the divine is? So that's what I'm speaking about. We've got the original template of a biological mother inside us. Who's behind that? Well, to me, it's the feminine face of God, because who am I not to be holy, to be born in a body that has the template of the original love that I was created out of? So that's what I believe. That's what I'm holding as a possibility for all of those who are open to that thinking. Um, and what's more, it's not just a head thing; it's an unpacking and an unfurling from our bodies out. It's in our
Yeah.
blood. It's in
I
our
am
being.
holding that. Yeah, I'm holding that too, and I would offer to people. I've just been speaking in the past while as things are becoming clearer and we are becoming more in resonance, and it's almost like forming, you know. What I would say that we are offering a vibrational offering, a vibrational invitation. You
Mm.
could say a story if you want, but it's a story that can be felt. And as everything, as so much is collapsing, um, I feel we've even gotten past the point of trying to convince each other of anything. It just I can't even hear it anymore. It's a vibrational invitation, and as the women are, as what I call us women who use our voices with the womb function very much attached, with the full depth and belonging and color of our whole body very much in our voice, we are offering a vibrational invitation to people. And if they can feel that in their body, then they can come into resonance with that if they choose. Almost like we are perhaps the story beneath the story, just as you say, the one sitting on the ground, waiting for everything to settle into the body.
And the
Um,
wonderful thing
mm.
with the ground is that there's always another layer underneath it, so who knows? Um,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. And when you
yeah.
speak about, if we hold this blueprint of beginning, and we hold the blueprint of eternal beginning. This is what the womb room was asked for, was to create the right conditions, the soil, I say, the womb, that allows for the voice of eternal beginnings to speak. And to me, in my knowing, and I could never be convinced out of it. And if I am, if there's a vibrational invitation to something else that becomes more real in my body, I will go with that. But in my vibrational knowing in my body, the womb is the origin of the eternal blueprint, the voice of the eternal blueprint of creation. And it is the center point. It is almost like this. To me, I see this beautiful rose swirling, and it is my duty now to keep this rose swirling beneath all else, no matter what else. And
Mm,
again, this rose is going fast, and that is why the stuff that's projected can't stick anymore, because it's like, no.
mm,
There's just this insistence and this standing up, a rising of women who know that it's our watch, know that there are certain things in our hands. And if they're not in our hands, we are reconfiguring ourselves to figure out how to let them be in our hands. And with that, there's also this knowing that that is right and holy, but also we are calling for the support and the internal structure, the internal systems and external support systems that allow us to be who we are in a constant state of replenishment, in a constant state of bliss and radiance and or deep feeling and realness.
mm.
Um, okay, Lamo, that is what have you? Oh, excuse me. Let me just get rid of that. And so let me just speak to this, Lamo. What we have come to now is incredible, and I want this to just ripple out and allow this
Mm.
to be felt truly. This is very important, what we've spoken, and very real. Um, and is there anything else you have within you that you would like to share before we send out this beautiful rose ripple?
I think we've woven everything. Just that I love
We
you.
have.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you very
This
much.
here, there is so much going on right now. So I'm feeling the effect of our conversation in my own body. So
I'm feeling so much joy. Yeah, thank you.
I'm
Yes.
feeling a richness and like the blood has rushed back to my heart. My heart is just expanding in a beautiful way. Thank you,
Thank you for the
Lamo.
speak
So
and
much love. Mm,
magic. Thank you.
okay. All right. My heart has
Wow.
been moved by this. Okay, I'm gonna say thank you to everyone for tuning in. If you're watching, please watch this as many times as you need to feel, as we're speaking from the womb, this voice. It moves the heart. It moves what we feel is structured, and that's what we're here for. So allow that, and as you are moving the world around you, try not to feel unsteadiness, that sense of trepidation, that sense of like you're speaking and there's no, your voice is going into openness. Just call it excitement. Call it excitement and just do it. Okay, take care, everyone.